Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy this channel, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, which inspire me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net, go forward to my Amazon author page, where you can pick up copies of my books. So it is good to be back. I've had a little bit of a hiatus. Been moving, still getting set up in my new studio, kind of figuring out how I want things, trying to figure out the decor. I don't have my nice Japanese screen behind me, so not sure what we're going to do with the background, or you're just going to have a blank wall and I'll be drawing into the void. But before we get started, I wanted to give a quick shout out and a warm welcome to frequent viewer and new patron subscriber Timon Boyd. Thank you so much, Timon, for becoming a subscriber, supporting. If you have any problems with accessing the Discord server or any of the other features, please reach out to me. I look forward to having you on board and sharing more of my work with you. I'm getting a little weird thing here where it's saying that it's having trouble connecting to Facebook. Let's see here. Well, then I guess this stream just isn't going to be on Facebook this session. That happens. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I can really do to adjust that in real time. I'll have to look at that post-stream. Ah, I see Red in the chat. Excuse me. Says, hi, Jeremy, my fellow artists and comic makers. Welcome. Good to see you, Red. As far as Facebook, Red says, I heard it got hacked. Excuse me. Let me hit that cough. I've had a little bit of a cough the past couple of days. But let's see here. So Red says, yeah, on Facebook. Well, that is unfortunate. I hope that's not the case. But there's little that I can do about it now. So we're just going to drive forward. So Red, I'm going to be working on some character designs for my upcoming comic book. It's a reinterpretation of the Pandora's Box myth. But in the meantime, I'm just going to be sketching and talking about what I'm doing. If you have any questions about comic art or just topics that you want, questions or just stuff you want to talk about, feel free to throw it up in the chat and I will just ramble as I draw and sip some coffee. So what we have here, these are some sort of rough character sketches I have of my main character. This is my version of Pandora. And I've got a couple of different looks for her. I still haven't really decided whether I want to have the sleeved tunic versus no sleeved. And so what I thought I would do is I would just draw a couple of different silhouettes. So just two different poses. One is sort of a one leg in front of the other pose. There's kind of a standard like heroic legs apart, ready to kick some ass stance. And just sketch out some different clothing options on top of these. So let's see here. Wow, my vision is really going. It's hard for me to see the comments without my my glasses on. I think I'm gonna have to leave these on. Let's see here. Omar, hey, good to see you, man. What's up? It's good to be back. Red says Dr. Omar. All right. So let's see, what was I doing here? Yeah, so really I've just got all the silhouettes on one layer by itself, and then I've got another layer that I'm just sketching the different costume ideas on. And I might actually change, in terms of not just changing the silhouette, but also perhaps adding some. I should lock this layer because I know myself, I will end up sketching on it. Um, I may change some of the body pose or add things, some sort of armor or different equipment to her costume. And I kind of wanted to have her sword like you could see it a little bit from behind, but that doesn't really make sense because I feel like it would be strapped to her side and specifically designed to go kind of directly away from us in space, running parallel to her body so it wouldn't interfere. So really all you would see is like the top of the pommel and a little bit of this, and most of it would be kind of behind and to her side. So it won't really read like a sword. Let's see here. Red says the backpack reminds me of my two characters. I definitely took a lot of inspiration from Lone Wolf and Cub on that. It's kind of the vibe that I'm going for this story. I don't want a sword going down that long. In fact, I think I'm just going to leave the sword out. Well, nah. See, the point of doing these designs is to figure out how things are going to read when I'm drawing the character quickly. So, if she's going to have a sword strapped to her side and she's standing in a silhouette, how do I want that to read? Let's see. Chris is in the chat. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Chris. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to be back streaming with you guys. So I don't know if the answer would actually be go ahead and make the sword more prominent, but specifically make it read like a sword. Or at least the hilt of a sword. And these are really tiny details. I just realized that as I'm drawing this, you guys can't see what the hell I'm doing. We've had this conversation before about the challenge of thumbnailing when you're live streaming, because thumbnailing makes the most sense when you're drawing super tiny so that you can't get caught up in extraneous details. But then it's sort of like, what is the point in showing you a bunch of tiny little pictures where you can't see what I'm drawing? So it's still not a particularly huge drawing, but it's zoomed in a little bit more than I normally would. And the idea here is that I can take this and I can either draw a separate version with the helmet, or with the magic of digital, I can draw a helmet on a third layer. That way I can turn it on and off and have what she would look like with the helmet and without. like this. Maybe a slight. I can get smaller in terms of brush size, but I don't really want to get into a tiny, tiny brush size. Something like that. Should bring this down a little bit more. Maybe erase out a little bit of those eye opening. Let's see here. James in the chat. Now, see, James, I was thinking about you and about how it sucked that you were going to get bumped from this. When I started the stream, it said something weird, which just said Facebook could not connect, and there was some technical problem. And I don't know why it wasn't, but I was trying to reconnect, and it just was not. I couldn't figure it out either from here. And even now, like I go to the page, it just says we're having trouble playing this video. I don't know what's wrong with the Facebook end of the stream. I'm probably gonna have to disconnect Facebook and then reconnect it later on. Maybe it's just because the fact that I didn't stream for 2 weeks, it just decided to penalize me or bump me. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad that you found it. I'm glad you made it. Sorry about that. Yeah, for people watching on Facebook, just so you know, if you haven't been on the stream before, I'm streaming at the same time to Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. And I think on YouTube it lets you see everyone's comments, but I know on Twitch, I think all the Twitch people see, like, I think the only thing that Twitch sees in the chat are Twitch comments. But one of the platforms, I think it's YouTube, lets you see all of the different chats. So that's one of the reasons why I put the chats on the screen when I reference it, because otherwise you'd be watching on a different platform, be like, what the hell is he talking about? Who's he talking to? Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Yeah, James says there's been a lot of hacking lately, especially with job postings. He says, I didn't think you did anything bad. Well, you know what? It's worth checking, even though I tend to be pretty careful about the links that I click on. I want to make sure that there isn't any weird, strange postings on my page account or my personal account, because I may need to get YouTube involved in getting that, I don't know, just reset the password or make sure that someone's not doing anything nefarious with my channel, because it is just the links people will go to scam somebody is ridiculous and unfortunate, because it makes it really hard for small businesses, independent creators. It just sucks, because all I want to do is make art and share it with you guys. But hopefully it's just a glitch and we'll get that sorted for next week. I mean, I was prepared for a variety of things to go wrong, it being the first stream back, but let's see here. One of my cats is circling around the studio here. I'm gonna have to decide what I want to do with her helmet, because it's too easy to just do the well, you know what? Why not? I was gonna say the little fluffy thing, the little like fuzzy comb at the top. I'm gonna have to pull some reference and look at some more Greek like hoplite helmets and see how they do theirs. See if there's any variations, because it's not like I am anti that style of helmet. The helmet has a little comb on top. It's more of the fact that because it's so prominent in Greek mythology, Greek and Roman like war movies, if I can do something that looks a little bit different, if I can make it look my own. In fact, you know what? I'm going to write down a note here. I should look at the production design for Troy. Movie reference. I know Gladiator is another one, but I don't remember how many scenes of people in helmets, or whether they really distinguish the helmets. I'll look at Gladiator and Troy and just see if they give me some ideas. And that's the other thing, is I want to look at theirs and see if I can come up with something that isn't just doing theirs instead of this one, but see if I can find something that will inspire me to come up with a third option that's unique in its own way. Let's see here. Back to the chat. So Red says, so my theories are true. Let me adjust the mic here. I'm a little bit closer. Yeah, let me know how the sound quality is, because also I'm in a new room. I'm in a new studio. New studio, new room, new acoustics. And I'm not sure if there's going to be things that I need to adjust in order to get this new studio up to snuff. Let's see here. So James says, I've been getting crazy with shapes for faces lately. I even came up with a conjoined face idea. That reminds me, there's an artist named Chet Zar who does like dark surrealist art. And he has a group show that he does in Los Angeles called Conjoined. He does it multiple times a year. And I think it is kind of in the vein of what you're talking about. Let's see here. Red says, tried blocks and circles. James says, a little, mostly organic and jagged edges. Now, see, that's an interesting combination, the hard and the soft shapes. I mean, I can see why you're having fun specifically combining those, because I like the challenge of trying to find ways of making things that should not work together. So it sounds like a fun challenge. Let's see here. Red says, I break everything down, learn bit by bit, and everything is fine. Well, that's what they say, like how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So James says, hands are somewhat of a challenge for me. I was drawing some for someone who's trying to get a comic idea off the ground. I start with basic shapes since I haven't drawn hands in a little while. But the thumbs were a bit tricky for me. That lower part where the joint is, especially. I'm talking about like this, or where the thumb connects to the wrist. Well, I will tell you right now, I'm always talking about the figure drawing classes I'm taking. So Carl Ganas, the instructor that I study with, he has a class specifically on heads, hands, and feet. And I take that class a minimum of once a year. I've taken it probably at least 10 times now. And every time I take it, I learn more. And there's never a point where I'm like, oh, I've got it all. I understand everything. So the idea, it unfortunately makes complete sense to me that you would have trouble with it, because that's one of those topics that's always challenging. The only advice I really have would be, you're doing for something very specifically stylistic with the combining of of organic and jagged shapes. I would pull back from that just to spend a day or two practicing hands and just look at it conventionally, like just trying to draw representational hands, just working on getting the simple volumes, the gesture of the hand. Like I try to think of the hand like it is its own person, where the palm is like the torso and the four fingers are like the limbs. You can say the thumb is kind of the head, but it's not really. But at the same time, even though this is a whole body, the wrist plays an important part in terms of setting up where the hand is going to go and the angle of it. If you've got a really nice hand and then the wrist just feels either dashed off or doesn't feel like it's moving or connecting in space or supporting it, it'll feel weird. So it's almost like I think of the hand as a body on its own, but I also think of the hand as a head and the wrist is like the neck. Like in the same way that you can't have a head without a neck supporting it. And even though we think that the head is leading the neck is really everything is coming up from there. And the head, what your torso does is going to change what the head does. And what the neck does is going to change what the head does. The head is responding to what the rest of the body is doing. And if you apply that kind of thinking to the hand itself, and just do a bunch of like little thumbnail hand sketch, like do like, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages of 2 or 3 sheets of just, different hand sketches. I like using Line of Action. There's another photo reference website that my buddy John Ersick recommended. I cannot remember what it's called. It might be called Character Ref. But if you go back a few live streams to the one where I had John Ersick on, he mentions that there's another website to use that will also give you some good character reference, hand reference. Point is that it'll give you a series of photos to look from. And then don't forget, you've got hand reference right in front of you. And for some people, it might feel weird to be drawing with one hand while looking at the other for reference. But once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. And if you do it in front of a mirror, you can get your hand facing you, your hand away from you. Then you can get the angles of your hand reaching out that you can't, angles that would be really awkward for you to do on your own, turning your hand around, trying to look at it. You can just look in a mirror and draw. So try that. Try drawing from your own hand with a mirror. Oh yeah, James says, I was mainly using my own hands. Yeah. You know what you're doing. Let's see here. Red says, can you make ears point out from the hoplite helmet to make it look like she can hear? It's historically accurate, or I'm wrong. You are not wrong. I did leave room for her ears in the sense that like her ears are sort of roughly drawn there. And I guess if anything, what I need to do is just shift the helmet over. Because yes, she does have ears. Her ears aren't sticking way out, but there are openings for her ears. That's more of a fact of me just being lazy when I was roughing this character in. Let's see here. And Red says, thumbs are fun to draw for me. Yeah, I mean, for all of the fingers, they all have like a nice sort of flow to them. Like they're these dynamic but organic wedges. I'm going with each knuckle, and it's got like sort of an angled soft side. Then it's got that really structural part on the top where you can kind of see the bones on the surface. But my greater point, I had mentioned that class that I'm taking. I never get there's never a point where I'm like, oh, I've learned enough about drawing hands. I don't need to study anymore. I mean, I've been drawing for most of my life, and head, hands, feet, they're all things that I still have to work at. So I think you're just butting up against, like you said, you haven't done it in a while. That's going to be an extra long readjustment curve. It's going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle, but it is something that always requires study and reference and analysis. And there is nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that that's one of the things, you guys tell me, but I think that's one of the things that is interesting about art is that there's never really a point where you're finished. And while that can be frustrating to some people, the idea of knowing that there's always going to be a level of trying to grow, to understand, to get better, there's always going to be a higher degree of needing to explore your craft. That kind of thing keeps the quote unquote game interesting. Let's move this little finger over here underneath the movie reference note. So this is really a chance for me to explore different costumes. Fred says, yay. Thank you. It just feels good to get back here in front of you guys and get back to work on this project because I have done painfully little over the past several months. And I really need to lock in and finalize the writing on this product so I can really get started with drawing actual comic pages, or at least get into the layouts. So now I am going to try and switch to a gown for her. Because even though she's going to be a warrior, it's kind of a Xena warrior princess motif where she kind of makes a transformation from sort of a pampered, glamorous Greek demigod to Wonder Woman. Let's make this a little bit higher so I can kind of have her waist underneath. This go this way, this cut back the other way. That way it's like she'll have two layers of verticals separated by this band of fabric going across. In fact, now that I look at it, I realize not only should it be verticals, but it should also be maybe keep these as large masses. I'm trying to decide if I want to have this go all the way to the ground and drape behind her. You know what? It's concept sketching. Why not be bold? Go ahead. Try some stuff that I don't even necessarily know if it would work or not. And that is an interesting conundrum when you're doing concept sketching, the idea that we're always trying to draw the best thing we can, do things that look good, feel good, but it also makes us sometimes overly cautious and leaning away from experimenting and giving yourself space to draw something that actually kind of like when James was talking about combining the organic shapes with the jagged shapes, the idea of drawing something that you know should not work just to see what happens. Yes. Red says it takes time to draw after all. James concurs. You know, it's funny. For the longest time, I could not really get my brain around the silhouette method of character design. Like, there's a book that I've mentioned a few times over the years on this stream called The Skillful Huntsman, and it's Scott Robertson from the How to Draw book and the How to Render book, Design Studio Press, Art Center instructor. He's got a YouTube channel as well. I have read a few of his books because working in toy design, I also picked up his Hot Wheels book. He specializes more in vehicle design, but concept design in general is his thing. And there's a book called The Skillful Huntsman, which is him taking 4 of his students through basically kind of a thesis project where they're taking a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale and doing character designs for it. And I remember seeing just how amazing all of these students' work was and just trying to do all of that and not being able to get it. And it wasn't until like maybe a year or two ago, might have been a little longer, but I was doing taking some schoolism courses. And when I looked at someone doing a silhouette character design, I saw that in their approach, it wasn't just the silhouette on its own. They were building the point is that they were building this silhouette, meaning that they kind of treated it the same way you would any other sketch, where it was kind of a more linear, rough sketch. And they would just kind of add chunks to it and add forms to it. And once things started feeling like the pose had some character. Let's see here. Red says, "How about a long gold blocky fabric on a shoulder that hangs, maybe only on one shoulder? Give that a shot." James says, "Reminds me of Basquiat's childlike curiosity." I honestly, I need to remember that to actually play and have fun, because I very much get too caught up in trying to quote unquote do things right. Let's see. Let's see what happens if we go and cut this around this way. Now, I'm going to use gold here because I think that in you mentioning it, it was interesting, but this book is going to be a black and white comic. So I don't know how much color will play. I mean, yeah, there'll be color on the covers of the comic. So, but let's see what happens if we go with something that's a little too yellow, something a little bit in the middle. Maybe give her just a sash coming down. I should be a little bit darker, I think. Give a little bit more contrast. Something like that. Then I'm going to come back in there with some black and give it sort of that this Greek block pattern. Now let's say maybe it goes back and around and it wraps around this way. Drop this down. I could probably find a way to make a pattern brush so that I can just do one stroke and it strokes this pattern into whatever I'm drawing. That might be handy. Let's see here. Red says maybe make it gray and bright and pray people think it's gold. Well, I don't think that this is going to be the reason. I'm just sort of spitballing here. I think there's only going to be like one or two scenes in the whole book where she's going to be wearing a gown. She's definitely going to be much more kind of dressed as a warrior throughout most of the story. So I'm not going to overthink this. I'm playing. This is more of the improv type yes and thing. I don't necessarily think that it being gold is going to be important, but I'm just going along with it to see where it leads me. Back to the Basquiat thing, just seeing what happens. Trying to think out all of the iterations and why I should or shouldn't do a certain design. This isn't the stage for me to start putting up walls and say, well, you know what, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. I'm just, so I'm putting a little sort of a crown type thing here. And then I'm trying to think, I don't really know what type of headdress I want her to have, but I'm just going to sort of let's say maybe it's like a rat. Well, let me give it a shape first, and then I can worry about details. Let's say she got something like that. And then there's sort of maybe curls or locks coming out of it. Because the way I see her, she doesn't have incredibly long dreadlocks, but she does have, her hair is kind of like in locks coming down her back, maybe shoulder length. So what if we take those locks and we put them all the way up, and they're kind of like bound up in her head wrap? And maybe we've got a little bit more curl where they come out at top. Almost like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, something like that. Let's move on to another one. Let's see. Red mentioned maybe gold fabric is holding the top clothes together. It's possible. I think I'm gonna alternate back and forth between warrior costume and gown costume. I mean, if anything, I probably only need like one or two passes at the gown and mostly focus on the warrior. But I want to see what happens if I try her warrior look on this kind of. I was trying to go for a runway model pose, although even this is still a little bit, she's tall and muscular. So I don't think that this really looks like a runway model per se. But let's see what happens if we give this version some armor or some weapons. Let's say she's got sword. And I can throw a shield on here because it feels like a shield would be a good complement. But I also feel like it would hide more of the costume design. I'll do the same thing that I did with the helmet, where I'll put the shield on another layer on top. Let's see here. So the one element that I find I consistently like is the skirt with the leather straps. As a matter of fact, what happens if I just let all of these come down like this, then maybe come across, cut across that way? I feel like they still need a little something, taking a chunk out of them to give them something angular. So what if we give her more of a armored breastplate type thing? So let's say she just has a belt going across there. Let's see. And so Red says, "Do you want to make her stand out uh, and a little branch out from historically accurate to a little fictional close?" Um, well, I honestly am fine with doing something that is completely non-historical if it looks cool, because as opposed to it, I'm pulling from bits of Greek history, but given that it is about a mythological character, I'm definitely leaving it open to wildly veering off of history. So it's more sort of like I want it to have the sense and the flavor of something that like a hoplite would wear warrior wise, but with the flexibility to say, if I come up with an idea that is completely ahistorical, but I think looks cool and suits the tone, then I'm going to go for it. So I'm trying to not get too bogged down in that right now. I guess what I would say is I want it to feel historically accurate without being historically accurate. I mean, I have a few books on ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and I've got reference to pull from if I wanted to simply just make it a historically accurate costume. The problem with that is just simply that being historically accurate, there's plenty of movies and existing books where they've done work that's historically accurate, and I feel like it would be a little bit boring. It would just be another very well referenced Greek mythology story. So I want to give myself the space to go off and kind of Final Fantasy the character designs, if that makes sense. Giving her a little creature design on her shoulder armor. Better to just draw that in black. I started erasing it and I was like, nah, that's not working. And I guess the main thing that's tough to keep in mind is I'm having fun just sketching and sketching and sketching, but I also got to remember not to make these designs so complicated that they're going to be a pain in the ass if I'm drawing them page in, page out. Actually, I kind of want to, doing this one makes me want to see what would happen if I were to play with really putting a big, bulky suit of armor on her and then having this basically a supermodel walking around in like elegant but full on like combat armor. as I'm drawing these, I feel like it's getting away from the Greek mythology theme, so I do kind of want to pull it back a little bit. Yeah, as a point of do as I say, not as I do. I should be drawing this thumbnail now. I just didn't pull together a reference sheet before starting. But honestly, I should be drawing this with like a whole separate sheet this size of just photos of existing like Greek and Roman warriors. And give myself something to work from or work off of. Let's say she's got sort of a knee guard there. But then going down, there's like a central strap in the front. And then it's sort of like a sandal. Wrapping around. I don't want to get too caught up in the details of the sandals. In fact, that probably looks better with just leaving that rear foot in silhouette for now. Yeah, that looks a little bit too armory. I think that's what made me say, oh, let me go even further with that. Go back over here and do another gown. Let's say that this goes straight down from the middle. And then maybe it dips, comes back up on the sides. Yeah, it doesn't feel right. Instead, let's have this maybe a high, not all the way up to her hips, but kind of a high slitted front. Let me just add a little variation here at the bottom. Something like that, maybe. I don't know why, but I want to have this flowing in the wind behind her. And now that I do that, that changes the energy of the whole thing. If that's flowing, this has to flow. Maybe this flows less. But now that I've put that in there, it really changes the feel. Now the gown wants to have a flow to it, and maybe all the way up like this, sort of a crossbody thing. And I'm going to cut across that in the midsection with a belt to kind of cinch it, or a sash. I'm getting flashbacks of Marilyn Monroe. That is it Some Like It Hot? The famous shot of her standing above the vent, the subway vent, blowing her skirt up. Getting flashbacks of that with this design. A little sip of water. Just underneath, sort of a wrap across her breasts. Maybe some long gloves. I mean, this is very much not Greek, ancient Greek style. Give her something around the neck. Hello, Kachu. Give her a little tiara of some sort. Actually, I just like her with like the white hair against her silhouette. I'm almost kind of like, I don't even want the tiara. Let's put like a dark shape above. I don't know what that dark shape represents. Some more hair. Some dreads, kind of folded that way. It does not feel ancient Greek, but I think it looks pretty cool. See Martin in the chat. Hey, good to see you, brother. I just noticed now that we are pretty much at an hour. So let me maybe do one more, and try to go back to the warrior aesthetic, because I feel like I started off very warrior, Greek warrior, moved into a couple of fun ideas, but I don't feel like these ideas are really moving in the direction that I want. I want to try and bring it back to a Greco-Roman warrior. So I'm going to start sketching out one more, and we're going to call it a day on this stream. So if anybody has any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, topics, now's the time to bring them up. I'm going to try drawing this. Until now, I've been pretty committed to the leather kind of warrior skirt. I'm going to intentionally make this just fabric. But let's see what happens. I really don't want to give her shoulder pads. This is tiny for you guys, I know, but I really need to see the one above so I can think about how I want to make this contrast with that. Just give her some gauntlets. See, because now this just feels sort of like a dress. It doesn't feel like any type of combat warrior clothing at all. And that's sort of what I need to get back to. If I could change anything, I would have gone and gotten proper reference before doing this so that you guys could watch me working from reference. Because I feel like that is actually the big thing that this particular design is currently missing, is looking at reference and then trying to find ways to say, all right, what would be an easier way for me to draw what I'm looking at? Or how can I make this, my own? How can I revamp or redesign something that's existing? Yeah, because this doesn't feel warrior at all. This feels tunic. Could be sort of a casual streetwear-ish type thing. But that's also the nice thing about doing this digitally is I can sit here and do a whole set, turn this layer off, and then just do a whole nother set of clothing on top of that. And just go through variation after variation after variation until I get something that I'm happy with. Like so far, the first two are the only ones that feel like they're even slightly in the ballpark. I don't know why, because I've avoided adding any facial details, but I feel like I want to give her a lipstick and a veil for some reason. I don't know why. A kind of a Justice is Blind type veil. because she is absolutely not blind. Let's see what happens if on top of that we put some sort of boxy crown. Let's see here. Martin says new facility. Yes, I took a break for a little while. My wife and I made a move. Still getting the new studio set up. But for the most part, I feel settled enough that I can start getting work done again. And that ain't nothing. Now it feels like I'm just putting shapes in there just to put shapes in there, which I'm not against, but I want to. Yeah, I don't think this one is working either. I'm definitely going to redraw. I think probably all these except for maybe the first two. Well, no, not necessarily redraw, but just scrap all the other ones and try and move this closer into a direction that feels Greco-Roman. All right. But on that note, let's come back to the big screen. And again, I want to thank Timon for becoming a new Patreon subscriber, becoming a new patron. And if you guys would also like to become patrons, you can become a patron by heading over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. You will get 2 bonus live streams per month. They're where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around. But I'm also kind of changing it and calling it artist office hours. So it's really just a chance to get on a private conversation, and just talk about art. We have a voice channel open in Discord, so as opposed to typing in the chat, you just get in and we can talk like real human beings verbally. Get in there, talk. You guys can share your artwork in the Discord server. I can look at it, do drawovers, give feedback, talk more about my process, show you more of what I do. It's just a chance for us to dig in deeper beyond what we do here on the public live streams. We do those twice a month, and on the Discord, I post when we're going to have the next sessions coming up. You also get access, like I mentioned, to a Patreon exclusive Discord server where on the community we share art tips, work, feedback, things that we're looking at creatively that are inspiring us and challenging us, that sort of thing. So head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. $2 a month gets you in the door. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog post about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books free digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like Eye of the Gods. This is my first graphic novel. It is a psychological thriller about a man who's cursed with visions he cannot control. It's a standalone, done in one book. Or you can also pick up my most recent project, Morningstar. It is a retelling of Lucifer's Fall from Heaven as a Western. It is an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8, the conclusion to the series. Both volumes have extensive back matter. Got character designs, thumbnails, page layouts, and more. Basically, I show you how I put the entire book together. And if you'd like to see further, you can go to the homepage of my YouTube channel. There are book flip-throughs for each of these books. You can see what's inside before you pick them up. All right, guys. So again, great to be back. Great to see everyone. I hope this was interesting. If you guys have any comments or things that you think about or want to talk about later on, post them in the comments for this video. Even after the live stream's over, I'll read them, respond to them. Maybe I'll address them on a future live stream. That's it for now. Go be creative.